Howdy, boys, girls, and welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. I mentioned specifically that it's the Carla and Crappy Show because although we spoke for about 90 minutes last week, I never once mentioned the name of the Carla and Crappy Show. It was a thing I neglected to mention last week. This is the Carla and Crappy Show. I'm Crappy, and that's Carla. Hi, Carla.
And that means I'm Carla. Hi. I didn't even notice that.
I didn't notice until I had the nagging feeling that it's like, did I say the name of the show? I'm not sure. And then when I was editing it, I'm like,
we were just too excited. There was so much good stuff out of week one that we just dove right in. And and we had some good stuff out of week two as well. It's been a fun start to the season.
I would point out the theme of last week's show was willing things into existence, and we got you can help me here. I know we got a Notre Dame loss.
We did.
We got an Auburn loss. That wasn't directly the goal, but I think the overarching point that we got an Auburn loss at home, especially. Wow.
Yes.
That this willing things into existence might. We should definitely just be careful to use our powers for good.
I agree. And I mean, we did pretty well, actually, in that, batting about 500 and willing things into existence. I mean, I wanted Notre Dame to lose. I wasn't expecting Northern Illinois to be the ones to do it.
No.
But thank you, Northern Illinois. Mac had a great day overall. And I'll talk about that here in a minute when I break down what the heck happened to my Knits.
I would have had the pirate flag out, but I can't find it, so I don't.
You can't find it. Yeah, we got to find it for midseason.
Yes, we will.
We'll get there. The other thing that we may be willing into being is Vandy to a bowl game. Because they won real big on Saturday to the extent that they actually ran out of fireworks at Vanderbilt Stadium. When was the last time?
I saw a tweet about that. Yes,
they ran out of fireworks, and the neighbors who aren't used to like Vandy having a good football season. Apparently somebody posted on like Nextdoor or something, what's all this noise? Because they didn't know.
Well, I mean, if you've lived there for a while, you might not realize.
Exactly. They didn't know that it was the fireworks from the stadium. It was an afternoon game, so it wasn't like it was dark or anything. But it was just kind of funny. But I'll talk about where they're going to be this week. We could be looking at 3-0 Vandy by the end of this weekend, and they're halfway to bowl eligibility at that point.
That's crazy. Who do they have this weekend?
They are at Georgia State this weekend.
At Georgia State, winnable.
That is very winnable.
Okay.
In fact, they're favored. They're favored in that game. So
that might be something that AJ is going to tell us about. We'll find out when he files his After Dark report. We've touched on a couple of things from last weekend. What else stood out to you about the games last weekend?
Well, a lot of things. So I'm going to keep like really tight, just kind of quick hit things here. So let's start with the two UTs that looked every bit as good as we thought they were going to. Texas looked every bit a national title contender in the Big House. They were dominant from start to finish in that game. And same way Tennessee looks real good. NC State was never in that game. So two really big wins by the school's abbreviated UT. Another game that wasn't a game that we were trying to will into existence. This is one where we failed. Clemson, big over Appy.
There was that.
That was a little surprising to me, but maybe Clemson is the team in the ACC. I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold who the team is in the ACC, but you have to think that Clemson's kind of taking the lead in the first turn.
Right.
Is South Carolina for real?
Maybe we'll find out this weekend.
We'll find out more this weekend for sure. But that was a huge win at Kentucky. Huge win at Kentucky because people thought Kentucky was going to give Georgia an interesting game this weekend. And man, did they just suck the air out of that. So now, that's not even a game that a lot of people are looking for. Let's see. USF hung with Bama, Mortable, maybe. Boise, Oregon was a delight.
Ooh. I
that
did not
game.
stay up.
I didn't either.
Okay.
I made it to, AJ, be proud of me. And I posted this. I caffeinated.
Hmm.
I went and got my afternoon coffee. I made it through halftime of the 10 o'clock games.
Okay. I
Um,
did not.
that was a win. I would take that as a win. Um, yeah, so Boise, Oregon, an absolute delight of a game. Ducks
Mhm.
pulled that one out. We were, as you mentioned, we were wrong about Cal Auburn, but gratefully so.
Yes.
And a tip of the hat to Northern Illinois. So my nits. Um,
Right.
Penn State defense. Woof. Um, that was not your best effort.
No.
Bowling Green, as we were talking about the MAC having a good weekend,
Hmm.
Bowling Green right in that game, the entire
Yes.
game.
Yeah.
In fact, they scored on 4 of their 6 first half possessions.
Hmm.
And finally, the Penn State defense came out after the half and kind of got their acts together and forced 3 straight punts.
Hmm.
But like, even then, the lead felt precarious. And that's
Right.
not to say there was something wrong with the offense. The offense was doing its job.
It
The
was.
offense was doing its job. They were scoring fairly easily. I think it's really interesting to watch this offense and see how Aller has found Tyler Warren,
Hmm.
um, eerily reminiscent of the Sean Clifford to Mike Gesicki combination
Yeah. Okay.
back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
Or actually, it wasn't Sean Clifford. That was before Sean Clifford. Um, but it looks like Tyler Warren could be playing a similar role to what
Hmm.
Gesicki played. And of course, everybody in the Big Ten hated Gesicki because you couldn't defend him.
I did.
So yeah,
I
so
did.
let's that's something I'm going to try to will into being, is Tyler Warren being the next incarnation of Mike Gesicki.
Okay.
But Penn State off this week, thank God. They
Yeah.
need a week to regroup on defense to figure out what the heck's going on, because this is a defensive unit that should be really, really good. That line is really, really good. And man, they did not look the part on Saturday.
And
Um,
they played well at West Virginia.
they played great at West Virginia.
And really, I mean, I had I and this has been the case for a couple of years at least. I have more questions about Penn State's offense than I did about Penn State's defense going into the
Right.
season. And I got to see the ball get thrown downfield during the West Virginia game. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a pretty complete team. I suspect that Penn State's that maybe a lack of focus with a Mid-American Conference team in there. I don't know. Penn State's defense is not that bad. It is
Mm-hmm.
not. So I don't know how you account for what they did or didn't do against Bowling Green, but it was a rough afternoon for them.
Yes, it was.
Mhm.
It was a very rough and uncomfortable afternoon. Grateful, that was one of those situations. You remember the days being in the Beeve newsroom,
Mhm.
when people would come over and ask you who you were rooting for, and the answer was the clock. Um, I was definitely pulling for the clock in that game in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Not gonna lie, because
Mhm.
we had the lead and we just needed that game to be over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a win is a win, but whew,
Mhm.
a lot of work to do in the bye week. A
Mhm.
lot of work to do.
The bye week it comes at a good time.
Yes.
Anything else that jumped out at you?
That was the extent of my
Okay.
notes, but there are a lot of other things, but like
Sure.
those are kind of the highlights that stuck out to me.
To go with my homer teams, Ohio State looked pretty consistent. Improvement in the offensive line execution that made a difference in the running game, and I think Judkins was over 100 yards. Travion Henderson had a nice day as well. They were able to run the ball like they could not against Akron. And ostensibly, this is against Western Michigan, a better MAC team
Yeah.
than the Zips. So that was nice to see. OU beat Alabama South. Um, and I that was a good effort from my Bobcats. I was little concerned. They hung with Syracuse for a half, the first week of the season, and I didn't feel like I had a really good sense of what that team was going to be about. I was pleased to see their performance against South Alabama. And winning a game at home, winning your home opener, I guess is probably something you would expect. But yeah, I was pleased about that. I continue to be impressed by Tennessee and quarterback Nico. What's his name? Um, he did throw, I think, 2 picks in the game against NC State, but he also accounted for nearly 300 yards of total offense, 3 touchdowns, one of which was a 25 or 30-yard run. And the Vols have, we're going to talk a lot about Nico. The Vols have a really nice defense, again,
Yeah.
um, particularly front seven. So held NC State to just 10 points in Charlotte. That was an impressive effort. I'm not sure that LSU has a defense. Their home opener against FCS school Nichols State, they gave up 300 yards and 21 points.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Here, a team to watch, and I just mentioned them when I was talking about my Bobcats. A dark horse, perhaps in the ACC. Syracuse. They played Georgia Tech on Saturday. Kyle McCord, who I am not a particularly big fan of, even though he was an Ohio State quarterback a year ago, and then left us. He continued the run that he had against OU and put up big offensive numbers. I'm curious about how he's going to look when the Orange have a team that has a good pass rush. When the Orange men play a team that has a good pass rush.
Yeah.
That's when he struggled a year ago. And that was an unfortunate thing for him to give him some credit briefly. Ohio State did not have the offensive line that an Ohio State program should have, and so he was dealing with a lot of pressure, and it made him do dumb stuff. That still could happen this year when he's playing a Syracuse or playing a better teams in the conference, but they may be one of the better teams of the conference themselves. So
Yeah.
that's a team to watch. Um, Only comment about Texas and Michigan. Speaking of former Ohio State quarterbacks, I love that Quinn Ewers still calls Michigan the team up north.
Yes. Yes.
I,
I
I
noticed that.
he wasn't in Columbus long, but we rubbed off on him a little bit apparently. Um, Before we get to AJ and the group of Dark After Five report, I did it on purpose that time. We are going to start. This is sort of in place of the Cornell Big Red Bears report. As you know, my nephew Drew Powell has graduated and is going to go be a financier someplace. I'm not sure how that's going to going, but his college football career is over. But I have a new interest based on where I am working, and I told you guys about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. That I'm going to start paying attention to Carnegie Mellon football. They actually after last weekend they are up to 20th in the country
Nice.
in Division Three, and I want to introduce you on the show at any rate to Brendan McCullough, a Pittsburgh kid and a wide receiver for CMU. He had 5 catches for 109 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Tartans slammed Thiel on the road 58-0 on Saturday. I want to see this juggernaut in person. So on the Saturday afternoon, unless it's doing something stupid like raining or something like that, I'm going to go to campus and I will be in Giesling Stadium, and I might be mispronouncing that. I don't know.
You should
Um,
figure that out.
well, it's a G, and it could be Giesling. I hmm. I'm going to try to find that out before the actual game starts. So I'm going to go to campus and watch the Tartans play Geneva, and hopefully move on to 2-0. So we will see how that goes. I will report back and tell you what I have learned about the Tartans and how they look in person. We have a few games to talk about, you and I.
Yes.
AJ, as always, has the group of Dark After Five report, where he tells us about the games that he says we should be paying attention to, whether that's Big Ten After Dark, which is now apparently a thing.
Very much so.
But or his beloved group of 5 schools. AJ, what do you think?
Hello, everyone. It is AJ, and it is time for your Group of Five After Dark report. I am doing this report from proper after dark country. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, and it is very much after dark. So let's dive into this weekend's slate of games. And I'm going to start at noon with Memphis at Florida State. And the only reason I'm picking this is that Memphis has a hell of a passing attack. They don't run the ball that much. And we watched Florida State get run through by Georgia Tech and by Boston College. Does Memphis come out and try to actually run the ball, even though they haven't? Their leading rusher only has 27 carries on the year, and they've played 2 games. Or do they try to just throw Florida State to death? I'm very interested to see how this goes, because if Memphis does come into Doak Campbell and beat Florida State, buddy, it is going to be real loud for Mike Norvell's job. Just throwing that out there. Also at noon on ESPNU, we have Cincinnati at Miami of Ohio. This is a lovely, fun rivalry. I think this is also the last rivalry game that they're going to play for a little bit. So keep your eyes on this one. They're playing at Miami of Ohio, so I love this. Cincinnati absolutely fumbled away the Pitt game. They were up 27-6 and lost 28-27. Or sorry, 29-27. This is a big, big deal. Cincinnati needs to get back in the game. Miami of Ohio, they did not have a great start to the year, but this is a way for them. This is a rivalry game. They're going to get up. This is going to be fun. Keep an eye on this one. On FS1, also at noon, we have North Texas at Texas Tech. North Texas is fun as heck, y'all. They want to throw the hell out of the football. Their quarterback already has 737 yards of passing. I want to make sure to get all his yards in there. 7 TDs and 3 picks. They are chucking the ball, and it might work and it might not work. Their leading rusher has 16 carries for 171 yards across 2 games. So North Texas wants to score points. Texas Tech's defense is fully broken, and Washington State did whatever they wanted to them. In fact, Washington State's quarterback ran for like 150 yards last week. It was crazy to watch. By the way, remember how I told you the late slate was going to be great? I told you that Boise State's Oregon game was going to get spicy. You're welcome. Keep an eye on that. That should be fun. That's at noon on FS1. I do need to touch on 2 games here. I'm going to touch on Oregon State at 3:30 on Fox, and the Apple Cup, which is Washington State, which is also at 3:30, and it'll be on Peacock. Oregon is real questionable right now. They got run through by Ashton Jeanty. And I can't tell who's the Boise State running back. I can't tell if Ashton Jeanty is like really, really, really good, or if he's just played 2 terrible run defenses in Georgia Southern and Oregon, which is a wild statement to say. I'm interested to see what happens here. Oregon's favored by 16, and the fun index is 50.5. It is at Reser Stadium in Corvallis. So this is not in Autzen. Oregon's got to go on the road to go play this game. This is going to get spicy. Put this on your TV. Also, when we go down to the Apple Cup, we have Washington State going technically to Washington. They're playing this at Lumen Field, and I hate that. They're playing it in an NFL stadium when Husky Stadium is literally right there. Like, Husky Stadium is great. Why would you play this in an NFL stadium in the same city? This is so dumb. I don't like this, but the fact that it made the game happen, I'm good with. Washington's favored by 4.5. The quarterback from Washington State runs the hell out of the ball. He might have some gaudy numbers right now because Texas Tech's defense is garbage, but he is a dual threat quarterback. He is super fun to watch. And Will Rogers is fine as a quarterback for Washington, but he's not great as a quarterback for Washington. It's a very clear step down from Penix, which it obviously was going to be, but this is something to keep an eye on as well. Speaking of Washington State and Oregon State, this is breaking news. It is currently 11:42 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, September 11th. Apparently, by the time you hear this, this might be true or not. But if it isn't true, mind your business. apparently, the Pac-12 is coming back. And I don't know how I could say how happy I am right now because it's very, very late and I don't want to wake other people. But the rumor is that there's an announcement set for Thursday morning where Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, and Colorado State will be leaving the Mountain West Conference to join Oregon State and Washington State in the Pac-12 for the 2026-27 academic year. And y'all, the Pac-12 ain't dead. It just took a nap. And this is something, honestly, that I think I talked about on a previous show a while ago. The concept of a reverse merger, where Oregon State and Washington State went to the mat to keep the Pac-12 name, to keep the Pac-12 conference, to keep the brand, to keep everything. The 108-year history, all of it. And they did it for one reason, to go do this. Apparently, the Pac-12 has set aside money to pay for exit fees for Mountain West teams. Again, because they had a giant settlement that came out of all of this, and so they kept the money to be able to do this. There's apparently some rumors that they might go outside of the Mountain West's sort of footprint as well. I'm very interested to see. The simplest thing that I had in my head was there's the Mountain West, there's the Pac-12, and you just reverse merge the Mountain West into the Pac-12, and now you have a, I think, 14-team conference. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact numbers, but you could have a 14 to 16-team conference with the Pac-12 name, with Pacific Mountain area schools in an instant. And then can use the Pac-12 brand to go get a better TV deal than I think it's like $4.5 million that the Mountain West has between CBS Sports Network and ESPN. So that's super interesting. I'm super excited for this. Bring it back. Bring the Pac-12 back. Pac-12 After Dark is going to get real and real fast. On ESPN2, we have the Backyard Brawl. That's also at 3:30. West Virginia's at Pitt. I'm going to attempt to go to at least tailgate this game because I don't know how many more of these we're going to get. But Pitt has looked okay. West Virginia had a real bad loss to Penn State to start the year. Pitt coming off of a comeback win against Cincinnati. Big rivalry game. Everybody's going to get excited. The fact that game day didn't come to this and they're going to LSU, South Carolina, is kind of a travesty. It's going to be 78 and sunny. This should be a great game. You should put that on your eyeballs. WVU is favored by 2. Super interesting. We have to talk about at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus, Virginia Tech at Old Dominion. Y'all, this is always a stupid game. As much as we don't want to talk about it being a stupid game, it's a stupid game because Old Dominion, even though they're 0-2, and Virginia Tech is 1-1, and Virginia Tech has looked pretty good in those two games. Who knows? Old Dominion might pull out their old bag of tricks and just make Virginia Tech do things like get stuck in the press box elevator, which was the thing that happened a few years ago. So I'm super interested to see what happens here. I always keep an eye on this game because it's always something stupid that happens. I would be remiss if I didn't reference at 6:30 p.m. on the CW network, we have number 5 Ole Miss at Wake Forest. I only have to say this out loud because it's a series of sentences that have never been said before. Ole Miss is favored by 22.5. They should absolutely blow the doors off of Wake Forest, but it's going to be Ole Miss is going to be on the CW network. Just turn that on for a little bit. A game I would have been excited about a while ago, and now I'm definitely not excited about it. UTSA at Texas. They played this game a few years ago when UTSA was at like peak college football hipster power, and it didn't. They had Texas kind of like on the ropes in like the third quarter, if I remember correctly, and then Texas just pulled away. Texas is favored by 35. They beat the brakes off of Michigan. I'm sorry, UTSA, it's not your year. We're gonna slide all the way down to the late slate. You do not have a Hawaii test. Hawaii is at Sam Houston this week. Hawaii had to leave the island, which is sad for everybody, but mostly for them. We're going all the way down to a limited late slate. I will say we do have some brand names, though. We got some top-notch brand names out here. First, at 9 p.m. on CBSSN, the Network of Champions, we have BYU at Wyoming. Wyoming has fallen off a cliff. Wyoming played Arizona State in the first week, got destroyed, and everybody was like, ooh, maybe Arizona State is back. And then Wyoming lost to Idaho last week. Whoops. Wyoming is kind of borked right now. And BYU comes off of a gross but football win going to SMU last week. It was their first road win in many, many games. So good for BYU. They are going to Wyoming, and maybe they can keep this road winning streak going. At 10:30 p.m. on ESPN, we have San Diego State at Cal. Cal coming off of beating Auburn and allowing Hugh Freeze to fall to the woke mind virus that is Cal football. This should be interesting. San Diego State is just not. They're still going to run the hell out of the ball. But other than that, they don't really have much of an offense. Cal has Jaden Ott, and that's all that matters. Jaden Ott's amazing. You should watch him whenever you get the chance. And finally, we have at 10:30 p.m. on True TV. Again, reminder to find True TV on your channel guide. We have New Mexico at Fresno State. New Mexico State is not the New Mexico State of Diego Pavia's time. He's at Vandy now. But neither one of these teams is looking terribly great. Fresno State 1-1. They held their own against Michigan for a while until Michigan pulled away. They beat Sacramento State by 16 last week, and they're now into their Mountain West schedule, where I expect Fresno State to be a top 3 team in the conference. This has been your Group of 5 After Dark report. Bonus at 7:30 p.m. we have UCF at TCU. This is a tremendous game. Tremendous game for those of you who are out there in acronym G5 land. Now that both of them, this is a Big 12 game. Oh, I said it out loud and I forgot. That's a power conference game. Everything's wrong with the sport. UCF favored by 2.5, by the way. This has been your Group of 5 After Dark report. We're trying our best. There's some extra news in there. But I wanted to send it back to Carla and Crappy with one thing and one thing only. Pac-12 After Dark soon.
Thank you, AJ. Informative stuff as always, and lots of stuff for us to check out on Saturday and the whole weekend. The games we will be watching this weekend begin on Friday night, but I do want to give you guys a quick heads up. This is a little bit like a mini Wivalwy week.
It is.
And that's in no small part thanks to the demolition of the Pac-12. But we will get there in just a moment. We're going to begin at 8 p.m. On Fox on Friday night. This is number 20 Arizona at 14 Kansas State. K-State is favored by 7. The AJ Fun Index is 58.5. Carla, what do you think?
First of all, a reminder to everybody, this is a Big 12 conference game.
Right.
Yeah. And so welcome to the Big 12, Arizona. You get to go to Little Manhattan on a Friday night. Nonetheless, Friday the 13th.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Welcome to the Big 12. So Power Cats last week, we knew they were going to be in a dogfight down in Tulane, and they absolutely were. And credit to them for pulling that game out when it looked like Tulane was going to win that game. And then, they came up with that pick in the end zone, less than 10 seconds left. I mean, talk about drama to win a game on the road. That being said, the K-State defense was not good in that game. They gave up almost 500 yards to Tulane. Total offense. That's more than 100 than they gained themselves. That's not going to serve them well in the Big 12. That being said, we're looking at an Arizona team that in week 1 we said looked like they were back, right? They put up big numbers against a good New Mexico team. We were very surprised by that. But then last week they were down at the half to Northern Arizona. Right. They were down 10-6 before they finally kind of straightened up and put the game away in the second half. So, we know that they have the capability to be explosive on offense. And if you're going up against a defense like K-State that apparently appears to be porous, this could be a really fun game. In fact, it's going to be a really fun game because of the atmosphere. But if you know anything about the Big 12, you know that you don't want to go play games in Little Manhattan, and you also know that you especially don't want to go play games in Little Manhattan after dark. So I am going, despite the porous defense that will come back and bite them at some point this season, I don't think it's going to be this weekend, and I think Kansas State gets the win at home. But this should be entertaining as heck. There's nothing else on Friday night. Like, watch this game. Find a TV, find a beverage, and watch this game. It's gonna be entertaining as heck. But Power Cats at home.
It should be fun. 2-0 teams. But K-State, I think, has some advantages. The big thing is that they've been tested. They have been in a rough environment. They had to squeak one out at the end at Tulane. So that's a bit of experience that the Arizona, I mean, the other Wildcats, they struggled to beat Northern Arizona, as you mentioned. They gave up 39 to New Mexico. I think I would pick this if this was just a normal Saturday afternoon game, but I think K-State is going to pull this one out, given that it's a night game and national TV and all that stuff. Yeah. The Purple Wildcats are going to come away with this win. On Saturday, our slate begins at 12:45. Okay, this is on the SEC network. Number 24, Boston College at number 6, Missouri. Missouri is favored by 17. The AJ Fun Index is a not so fun 53.5 points. What do you think about this one?
That AJ Fun Index is likely because of that Mizzou defense. Talk about a way to open your season. 8 quarters of play, not allowing a single point. And true. Okay. Let's couch that with the teams that they've played are Murray State and Buffalo. Okay. Sure. But to hold those teams scoreless is impressive nonetheless. Right. I mean, Murray State. Okay. But Buffalo's in the MAC. They're not a great MAC team, but that's still an impressive stand. So this is really the Tigers' first real test of the year. And I have to ask this question, and this is the week 3. Is this team for real? Right. I've already asked that about South Carolina. Is Boston College for real? We saw Boston College knock off. Are they a contender? You said Syracuse. I'll take your Syracuse and raise you Boston College.
Okay,
right?
That's fair.
Because this is a BC team that looked dominant against Florida State. And then picked up an easy win last week over a cupcake, right? And so and to borrow friend of the show, Kelly Krieg's notes on Threads, she said those of us who watched Bill O'Brien turn around a Penn State team are not surprised by this at all.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. This is what Bill O'Brien is good at, is going in and taking programs that are an absolute train wreck and putting them back on the map. Do the Crusaders have enough in this game? I don't think so. I think this is too tough of a test for them. But Boston College is going to make some waves, I think, in the ACC this year. They're going to mess some stuff up. They might not be an actual contender for a title, but I expect them to medal a bit. But I like this Mizzou team a lot. And I think they really have the potential. I think you've got 3 really strong teams at the top of the SEC. If you're looking at Mizzou, Texas, and Georgia, Mizzou gets this win, but I think Boston College continues to make a name for itself and say that it's not a pushover this year. They're not the cupcake that they have been for the last several years, but Mizzou at home. Okay.
Bill O'Brien is a native of Boston, and he is enjoying quite the homecoming, as you said, with the 2-0 start and the big win over Florida State and Tallahassee. Missouri, on the other hand, Missouri is 13-2 since the start of the 2023 season. The only losses, narrow losses to LSU at home, and Georgia on the road. They put a scare in the Bulldogs last season, and as you said, 2 shutouts so far this season. True, the Boston College is a significant step up in competition over Murray State and Buffalo for Missouri, but I actually feel like this is going to be a fairly comfortable win for Missouri at home, and we will get a look at a team that could be reasonably expected to contend in the SEC if they're able to, especially if they're able to keep playing that kind of defense.
Yeah.
The 3:30 slate is absolutely stacked. If you like rivalries or Wivalwys, as we tend to say on this show, you're going to want to be in front of a television or two or three at 3:30. We begin. Now these are kind of in no order, but they all start at 3:30 on Fox. We have the Civil War. Number 8, Oregon at Oregon State. The Ducks are favored by 16.5. The AJ Fun Index is 50.5 points. Carla, Oregon's struggling so far this year.
Yeah, they are. And my first note on this game is, oh, how much do I wish this was a night game in Corvallis?
Yeah.
Because the Ducks are struggling and the Beavs are off to a solid start, right? Oregon State blanked San Diego State last weekend. That was unexpected. The shutout. I think we all kind of thought they would probably win that game, but like to blank them like that at their place, that's impressive. The offense appears to be really balanced. Defense has been impressive to start. Oregon, meanwhile, it looks super mortable.
Yeah.
Super mortable, way more than we thought heading into the season. Idaho gave the Ducks fits. We talked about that already. And then last week's game against Boise lived up to expectations. And you kind of have to wonder, I mean, we talked about this last week. Dylan Gabriel knows this offense, right? It's not like he's a new person around, like he's been here. He knows this. And it's you're kind of waiting for him to flip the switch. And this is a really dangerous game. This is an incredibly dangerous game. And it is super tempting to pick the Beavs here. Because if you're looking at momentums, right? And just kind of overall like trends of these two teams, the Ducks are all over the place. Beavs are trending up right now. And when you're in a game like this, they're playing the Civil War in week 3 because of the demise of the Pac-12. There was already, obviously this was a heated rivalry that got even more heated now with the departure. What the heck? I'm going to go ahead and do it and say that the Beavs figure out a way to win this game on the road. Okay. I don't think that's really going to happen. I think the Ducks are the better team here, but strange things, as we know, throw the records out when you're playing a rivalry game and you've got a Beavs team that's fired up, that's playing for its, the remaining Pac-12 conference. Fly that Pac-12 flag. Go Beavs.
Okay. I started my notes by saying, are the Ducks really a top 10 team?
Yeah.
Man,
they should be.
They should be. On paper, they're one of the best teams in the country. And they're 2-0. Can't take that away from them. They struggled both times out against Boise State, which I think is forgivable, maybe.
Yeah.
And against Idaho, that's not forgivable.
Not forgivable.
So they go into their rivalry game on the road against a Beavers team that's going to have some extra juice because of the whole leaving the conference thing. It's not Autzen, but it's a tough place to play, Corvallis. I think Oregon's going to pull this out. But I think it's going to be a really tight game. Not 16.5 points is there's no way Oregon covers.
No.
So if you are someone who's into that, that's the thing to consider. And our standard disclaimer: if this is tight, in the fourth quarter, you might want to pay attention to what the Beavers are doing, because that could be a game that they could easily win at home. Staying in the Pac-2 at 3:30 on Peacock, the Apple Cup. Is it the Apple Cup? The Apple Bowl? Did I get that right? Cup. Apple Cup. Thank you. I always screw that up. This is Washington State at Washington. The Huskies, Washington, are favored by 4.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is 55.5. What do you think about this one?
So yeah, I hear that line. 4.5. Washington is only a 4.5 point favorite at home, kids. Find a Peacock subscription and then multiple screens, because all these games are happening at the same time, right?
Yep.
Is Washington good? Right? I mean, they're Will Rogers, the Mississippi State transfer, is the new quarterback in Seattle, replacing our beloved Michael Penix Jr. He's off to a solid start, but Washington hasn't played anybody yet. Again,
Right.
we're in that week 3 of like, is this team for real? And we can say that against Washington. However, Washington State's been tested, although to what extent? They beat Texas Tech last weekend, but this looks like a Texas Tech team that is a complete train wreck. After after struggling, they lose in week 1 to Abilene. Like, you can't. What is Texas Tech? Like, on paper, you look at that win and you go, "Oh, Wazoo has a good Power 5 win," and you're like, "Yeah, but." And that will play out a little bit more as we see who Texas Tech is, as we see who Wazoo is, right? Interesting note about Wazoo. They have a something, again, that is rare in the transfer portal era, a sophomore starting quarterback in John Mateer. Yeah, I know, right? It's rare to have when we talk about teams being young, right? Like, here's a true young starting quarterback up at Wazoo, has some real potential. Here's my concern, and you probably know where I'm going with this. Guess who the team's leading rusher is?
It's John Mateer.
It is John Mateer. And what do we say about that?
Oh man, that's not good.
Yeah, no, you never want your starting quarterback to be your leading rusher ever. And here's the thing, like, it's not even close. So if you're Washington heading into this game, your game plan's real easy. Stop Mateer. Like, that's it. You stop Mateer, you stop Wazoo. And I think that's going to be a pretty easy task.
Okay.
Is the game going to be competitive? Yes, it's a rivalry game. It's not going to be a blowout win for the Huskies by any stretch.
Okay.
But I do think I feel much better about Washington at home than I do about Oregon on the road. So give me the Huskies here, and it will be a good game. Again, if it's close in the fourth quarter, find your Peacock subscription. But I think this is a Huskies win.
Okay. The thing I said about the Civil War definitely applies here. The spurned team having some extra motivation, and that's going to be on the side of the Cougs. Mateer is interesting, and I'm looking forward to a chance to getting to see him play. He's already got he's creeping up on 500 yards passing for the season so far with 6 touchdowns, just 1 pick. He is dynamic. There's no question. 252 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns on the ground. But you don't want to be that one-dimensional. And a decent coach is gonna figure out they're gonna spy him.
Yep.
They can make a sophomore kind of doubt what he's looking at, depending on how the past defenses are set up. That's something that they can make life difficult for him, and by extension make life difficult for the Cougars offense across the board. I want to pick an upset here. But I don't think I'm gonna. With Washington State being as one-dimensional as they are, I think this is the Huskies are going to be able to stick this out at home. Mateer could get hot and make this really interesting. But I think Washington's gonna win this one. At 3:30 p.m. This is sounding familiar on ESPN2. The Backyard Brawl, right down the street kind of from my house. West Virginia at the University of Pittsburgh. The Mountaineers are favored by 2.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is 60.5. So a respectable fun index. Carla, is this going to be a fun game?
Something you probably couldn't have predicted at the beginning of the season, that the Backyard Brawl would have a higher fun index than both of those Pac-2 games.
Right?
Like, what kind of world? Everything is weird. I never would have picked that. So I can't get a good read on this game. As I was looking up information, and like, okay, so Pitt had a heck of a win last week.
Yep.
To kind of pulled a rabbit out of a hat to win that game late at Cincinnati. That's not an easy place to play. That's a solid Cincinnati team. That's a nice win for that Pitt team. West Virginia played a cupcake and didn't look overly impressive against Penn State. They were good. But Bowling Green put up more of a fight, right? Like when you're
Yes.
comparing those
Yeah.
two teams. And the thing that is kind of confounding to me was the situation of the Penn State West Virginia game with the rain delay and how
Yeah.
did that impact the way both teams played. And so
Yeah.
I can't get a good read on the Mountaineers as to whether or not, how are their units? I don't know. Pitt, we know, has been able to pull some late magic. This is a game, schedulers, be bold here. You should have played this game at, on Friday night in Morgantown.
Right.
Because then you get the atmosphere here. I was like, yeah, it's the backyard brawl. Will it have an atmosphere? I hope it does. This is a traditional rivalry game, hasn't been played in a while. I really want whatever the stadium formerly known as Hinesfield, Acrisure, whatever. Acra, sure.
Sure.
I want that stadium to be jumping because that's what this rivalry deserves. And I just don't know if that's going to be there for a 3:30 kick on a Saturday. Like, I don't know. I want it to be there. I don't know who to pick in this game. I'm going to say Pitt at home.
All right.
But like I said, this is another one of those we have no idea kind of games. I think Pitt can ride some of that momentum after the big win in Cincinnati. They were pretty amped after that win, as they should be. So I'm going to say that they figure out a way to ride that momentum at home here. Yeah, I don't feel good about that pick, but I'll say Panthers.
Okay.
And yes, I'm a Penn State fan, and I just picked Pitt. I'm just going on the record for that. Okay.
Wow.
It does freeze over occasionally.
Yeah. Okay. As we mentioned, Pitt needed a massive comeback at Cincinnati last weekend to beat the Bearcats. The Panthers also gave up 24 points to Kent in their season opener. That's concerning. While their kind of revamped offense has looked to be fairly impressive, I'm not sure that Pitt's defense is where it should be after a couple games into the season. As you mentioned, WVU lost to what looks to be a very good Penn State team, the game against PG notwithstanding, and then rolled over the Great Danes of Albany. So what's the difference? My nagging sensation here is that West Virginia is more of a complete team. And I think that's going to be enough. The skidge of defense that they play is going to be enough to slow down the Panthers. And WVU will win this game in the Mustard Bowl on Saturday afternoon. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on YouTube or the show's Facebook page. And you may recall from a year ago that you can read us on our Substack if you like us. Please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. Be sure to come back next week to see exactly how wrong we were, or we didn't really make any requests of the universe this time around. So maybe we won't be talking about new things that we've willed into existence, but come back next week anyway. Carla, what did you have a final thought or two? What else are you looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, a couple things here. A couple games we didn't talk about that were on our honorable mention list that we ended up not putting into the show, but I think are worth mentioning. Both at noon. So big nude. Number 4 Alabama at Wisconsin. Bama looks mortable.
Yes.
Mentioned that already. And so if you're a Tide fan, that's pretty unsettling. Wisconsin, we don't know. They haven't played anybody yet. Yeah. That's going to change on Saturday. Can Wisconsin put a scare into Alabama? If USF can do it, maybe Wisconsin can hang with them for a while. We'll see. They're playing at home. That stadium is going to be amped. Right. Getting that noon spotlight. Should be really, I think that game's going to be really entertaining in the first half. That should be a Bama win, but I think Wisconsin can make that game interesting at home. The other game we didn't talk about, number 16 LSU at South Carolina. I'm intrigued by this game to see if South Carolina is legit.
Very much.
You know, it's funny because the South Carolina team don't we do this every year?
Mhm.
Like, is South
We-
Carolina good or bad? We don't know. Um, and sometimes we're in week 10 or 11 and we're having that conversation.
Mhm.
But you know, I this is a really good test for both of these teams. Um, LSU looking to bounce back from the travesty in Vegas, and Brian Kelly's meltdown. Last week they played a cupcake last week, right? So like whatever
Yes.
they got the air back in their cells. They beat Nicholls State, whatever. Keep a close eye on this game. I think LSU is the pick here, but South Carolina, if they're as good as what I think they are, has the potential to pull this off at home.
Mhm.
So just keep an eye on that one. And then the two games of rooting interest for me, I already mentioned Vandy. That Vandy game at Georgia State is at 7 Eastern on ESPN Plus. Yes,
Okay.
kids, we may have a 3-0 Vandy by the end of this weekend. Um, and of course the game that I will be paying very close attention to at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. Our friend Jake Rose on the call.
Yes.
Western at Middle. It's the 100-mile rivalry.
That's not the real name.
No, it's not the real name. I won't say the real name though.
100 miles of hate.
it's-
And
it's a
Carla
family-
can't say it. I can say it. I'm
It's
gonna say
it's a family friendly show. Come on. No, this is the game, right?
Yeah.
This is the game, and
Yeah,
it's worth
yeah,
noting
yeah.
the line on this game only has Western favored by 5, I think, and that's huge. Because Western was predicted to be pretty high up in the CUSA standings, and that's a vote of confidence in Middle, I think.
Okay.
Although after going to Oxford last week, we'll take the vote of confidence. Thank you. That
Nah.
was not a fun afternoon. Sorry, boys.
No.
We kind of expected that, but whatever.
Yes.
This is going to be a good game. The atmosphere is going to be great. They got the party going in the Grove again. Here's the one thing that I'm really worried about though. There's this tropical storm that's coming.
There's that.
Are we going to end up with our second weather incident
Oh man.
at Floyd Stadium? That is what I'm going to will into being. I'm going to will 2 things into being this weekend.
Okay.
One, that it stops raining so that we can have this game played in clean field conditions.
That'd be
And
good.
2, go blue. Darn it all. Go blue. Win this game. This is the game we need. Win this game.
It still makes me uncomfortable to hear you say that.
All of my teams are blue. You know this.
I know. I do.
How about you?
To revisit LSU and South Carolina, I'm gonna take the Gamecocks.
Okay.
They were solid, and you might even say dominating at Kentucky last
Yeah.
weekend. And as I mentioned, LSU gave up 300 yards to Nicholls State. That is not a good combination when you're going on the road for a conference game. I'm picking South Carolina there. The other rooting interest I have, I mentioned Carnegie Mellon. I'm going to see that game in person. My Bobcats are hosting the Morgan State Bears of the Southland Conference. There is no line or anything available on this game, with the game between a 1A and a 1AA, or whatever they're called these days. But it's you can watch 3:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. I have been pleasantly surprised. Pretty good balance for OU's offense and an opportunistic defense. Parker Navarro, the OU's quarterback, he's a senior. He's been in the program for a bit. He is good. He is not one of the he's not like does not play like one of the Rourke brothers, the Canadians who have been quarterbacks at OU for the last 12 or 15 years.
Decades.
Yeah. But so far, I mean, the numbers aren't spectacular. 385 yards on the season passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. But he's not a liability. So I'm obviously I'm confident in the game against Morgan State, but I think my outlook on the Bobcats is pretty good. That's all we got.
It's an early weekend. It's interesting because like last weekend it was like caffeinate. We were staying up late because all the good games were super, super late. This week, all the good, like the marquee matchups are at noon and 3:30. Go to bed early.
Go to bed early. I will be back at home probably for about the second half of 3:30 games. So that is the thing I'm looking forward to. Yeah, it's going to be another fun weekend once again. And Carla,
yes,
I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you get to watch all the football you want to watch. And guys, thank you for being here, for watching, for reading, for listening, however it is that you ingest the Carla and Crappy show, which I should say again is the Carla and Crappy show, since I didn't say it last week. Whatever you do, guys, enjoy the games this weekend, and please join us again next week. Cheers, everybody. We'll talk to you then.
Cheers.
Thank you.